Welcome to Making AI Work in the Public Sector in Highly Regulated Industries. I know you've been listening to a lot of talks over the course of the conference, but here's why you need to listen to this one. We're going to cover everything we need to cover in 20 minutes, and I promise it's worth listening to. Hello, my name is Josh Elliot, and as the head of operations for an artificial intelligence software company called Modzy, it is one of my jobs to make sure we have the controls in place to proactively assess and mitigate the impacts and potential risks of this emerging and disruptive technology. I'm excited to be here today to speak with you virtually because we are at an exciting time and an inflection point in history where the decisions we make in the coming months will have the potential to impact society in the course of our future lives. This means the pursuit of and the responsible application of artificial intelligence falls on us, the executives, technical experts, and policymakers that are responsible for creating, implementing, and overseeing intelligent machines. Now, I can't promise that an inspector general or internal audit team won't come knocking on your door. And unfortunately, the movie The Matrix is not a reality, and I can't just inject you with the moral wisdom of ancient Greek philosophers or the foresight to predict every possible outcome. But you clicked on this session's link, so my goal is to give you practical recommendations that, if implemented, will certainly help you move your organization forward in an AI-powered future, while also ensuring compliance with externally imposed legal and regulatory requirements. So what makes the public sector and highly regulated industries unique? As the pressures to deploy AI in organizations become more prevalent, we need to remind ourselves that there's an inherent obligation in the public sector to protect citizens from harm. And in the context of what we're discussing today, that means potential algorithmic harm. In regulated industries, a failure to comply with laws and regulations may also mean a company loses its license to operate or is subject to punitive fines. So what does algorithmic harm look like? If you think about it, areas like safety, security, privacy, and bias, these are easy to identify how AI could create unintended or harmful outcomes. Imagine a couple of the following scenarios. First, many organizations are looking at the validity of facial recognition technology to improve and speed up processes such as identity and boarding pass verification conducted by Transportation Security Administration at security checkpoints. What happens when models can be tricked by people wearing masks or display bias against certain population groups? The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services host an AI Health Outcomes Challenge and engages innovators from all sectors, not just from healthcare. The challenge aims to develop AI-driven predictions for healthcare providers and clinicians. More than 300 entities submitted proposed AI solutions to CMS. How can the CMS verify and validate the entire supply chain of the winning algorithm? Staying in healthcare, there are currently no laws or harmonized standards that specifically regulate the use of AI in medical devices. However, these devices must meet existing regulatory requirements. What happens if the lead data scientist of the algorithm changes jobs, or even worse, becomes disgruntled and embeds code to remove personally identifiable information from the organization for personal financial gain, or to deliberately damage the organization? AI used in the simulation for drug discovery for clinical trials. Do we understand how or why AI models are making certain predictions or recommendations? Or are we comfortable relying on the recommendations of a black box AI model? Now, I know I'm just scratching the surface, and I'm not trying to scare folks away from exploring AI, because there are a lot of opportunities for AI to inform decisions, create and enforce better policies, optimize public resources, and certainly engage citizens in new ways. But it's important to remember that just like humans, machines make mistakes too. And going back to responsibility, it falls on us to be responsible stewards of this technology. As AI and machine learning-based systems become more ubiquitous in decision-making, should we expect our confidence in the outcomes to remain like those of our human collaborators? When we make decisions, we're able to rationalize the outcomes through questioning, and conversation around how expert judgment, experience, and use of available information led to the decision. Unfortunately, engaging in similar conversations with a machine just isn't possible yet, and the machine did it as an excuse will no longer fly. Additionally, because of our responsibility as public sector leaders and leaders of highly regulated industries, we no longer have the luxury of approaching problems from the perspective of, can we build it? We need to stop and ask, should we build it? So how do you ensure you're not flying blind into significant risk? Here are 4 things that you can do today. First, if you operate in a highly regulated industry, you better be doing everything you can to work side by side with the regulators defining the rules to educate them on the application of your technology. If you don't, you're going to be on the receiving end of a set of requirements that may be unrealistic for your business. Imagine the cost of having to retrofit your operations or your software to meet the new requirements. Second, it's important that your organization follows good machine learning practices. That includes making sure you have a human, or even better, a team of humans, that is accountable for each algorithm in production and can be there to answer questions when they arise, and they will arise. These individuals are responsible for ensuring the quality of the entire machine learning process. Everything from implementing model design and training best practices, like preventing bias from being introduced into training data sets, to model monitoring and retraining. The third thing you can do is operationalize your AI program using model ops or model operations. What do I mean by that? Well, model operations is a holistic approach to building AI models that can quickly progress from the lab or training environments to your production environment by focusing on automating the deployment, management, monitoring, and continuous improvement of every model. Each of these steps plays an important role, whether it's governing the models that are deployed, understanding what models exist in your organization and how they're being used, to detecting model drift and the need for retraining. Lastly, understanding how to satisfy regulators and legal thresholds before you begin model design can save you a lot of headaches and budget overruns. I don't know about you, but a consistent pattern of those 2 things are what we call in industry career-limiting moves. But in all seriousness, being able to track the rationale for how a model drives its outcome is critical for building trust in AI, particularly in the next few years as we look to advance and expand AI adoption and bring all stakeholders to the fold. Topics like transparency, explainability, and auditability are the long poles in the tent when it comes to regulated industries. Explainable AI emerged as a solution to the problem of the black box AI model, or models that are difficult to parse or understand why they reached a decision. In many highly regulated industries, stakeholders are legally required to show their work or show proof of how an AI system reached a decision. Although explainability is touted as a solution to enable transparency and create more trustworthy AI, not all models can be explained, nor should they be. There's a trade-off between performance accuracy of a model and explainability, and it's up to the end user and the organization to decide whether the risk of lack of transparency is worth assuming. But we can't do that without putting the proper guardrails in place from the start. For example, we don't require our GPS systems to explain driving directions, but we will likely have higher standards for systems used in medical diagnosis and treatment recommendations. Certain deep neural networks remain way too complex for today's explainability methods, but are still leveraged because they perform very highly. Some of those methods include open source solutions like Lime and SHAP, but there are other explainability solutions that are at least 5 times faster, which also means less expensive. And I encourage you to check out some of the blog posts on Modzy.com to learn more. Now, for those of you out there that get excited about automated logging and auditing capabilities, just like the capabilities built into your IT systems today, AI should be no different. Your AI system should be designed from the onset to log every action, user, or system generated so that you can reconstruct the entire chain of events in case an incident happens, and one will happen. A comprehensive auditing capability combined with explainability solutions can really give you the tools needed to open the hood of AI-enabled systems and understand how and why model decisions were made. If you're able to put these capabilities in place, maybe even your regulators and auditors will start sending you holiday gifts. Now, hopefully what I've shared with you so far has helped you open your eyes just a bit and some of the naivete is gone. So, if we're not ready to fully trust the machine in highly complex tasks and solutions that offer transparency are limited, how can companies and agencies still take advantage of the full benefits of this technology and remain compliant? The answer is human and machine partnership combined with embedded governance. The ideal partnership or relationship between humans and machines is one defined by seeding the best tasks, decisions, and liabilities for each. For humans, that means focusing on the decisions and tasks that require critical and creative thinking. For machines, it's the ones that are computationally intensive and require culling through large amounts of data to exact insights. The concept of embedding governance into AI ecosystem is gaining ground. And with the right processes and tools in place, organizations will be positioned to easily adapt to any evolving legal framework and regulation. Here are 5 suggestions that you can do to start embedding governance into your system today. First, define, incorporate, and communicate, corporate AI guidelines that espouse the values and principles of your organization, as well as the decision rights and processes for AI deployment based on application context and scale of stakeholder impact. This should be developed and reviewed by a multidisciplinary group and ultimately approved and regularly updated as part of your corporate governance process. 2, create a development environment of pre-approved machine learning training data sets and tools that data scientists and technologists can access and use to hone their skills and experiment with new AI techniques. Also, establish processes for proposing, evaluating, and adding new data sets that are trusted, fair, and respect human rights. 3, set up automated workflows or easy to follow templates for your employees to propose new AI applications and create AI model design checklists that encourage good AI systems engineering principles, critical thinking around stakeholder implications and unintended consequences, and other topics like data use and intellectual property rights. This level of guidance can open the door to new possibilities and better quality solutions, as well as reduce the risk associated with shadow AI. 4, plan and design for open architectures and a robust API at the onset. When teams employ this design pattern, it not only allows them to focus on what they like doing best, which is really building cool models, but it also results in other benefits, such as avoiding software vendor lock, supporting due diligence reviews of models before deployment, and making it easy to swap out or upgrade AI models in the future without extensive system redesigns. Look for AI technologies that make deploying containerized AI models intuitive, as well as include extensibility features that enable interoperability and reuse across your organization. And 5, incorporate technologies to manage your AI models and monitor their performance in real time, looking for indicators of model drift and adversarial attack, while also providing role-based access and the requisite levels of logging and explainability to support audits and address questions from regulators. Model management technologies also enable greater awareness of AI use across the organization, quickly revealing any duplication of effort that could save time and resources. A robust AI governance program should empower employees to focus on bigger picture objectives, long-term goals, and priorities, while also ensuring that your AI is explainable, transparent, and accountable. Embedding governance enablers takes away a lot of the dirty work, making it easier to leverage AI across your enterprise, so employees are more likely to follow protocol and spend more time on analysis and discovery of insights. Lastly, but certainly not least, we need to talk about security-specific considerations for AI-enabled systems. Like I mentioned earlier about governance for AI, Security for AI-powered applications is table stakes. You have to have it. And unfortunately, the fact that I'm here talking about this today underscores the fact that the approach du jour in building AI systems just isn't cutting it. Many organizations have what we call shadow AI problems. If you're an optimist, you look at this as a positive, and in many instances it is. You've got data science and development teams being scrappy and building their own AI systems, but the problems come to play when the form of wasted or duplicative resources, and when these systems are built outside of the purview of your IT or your IS departments. And we know that on average, 40% of all IT spending occurs outside the enterprise IT department. If we were to apply the same ratio to AI, that means that quite a bit of AI techniques either being explored or purchased at the department, business unit, or individual levels. And if you're the CIO or CISO, you may be thinking, if I don't know about it, it can't be good. Shadow anything, whether AI or IT, is one of the most common problems organizations face today. And according to research published by Gartner, in 2022, 30% of organizations using AI for decision-making will contend with shadow AI as the biggest risk to effective and ethical decisions. So, building off what I shared earlier, the takeaway here is that we all need to be examining our approach to AI security a little more closely and thinking about how we can be making the same standards of securing and defending IT the same applied to AI applications. And unfortunately, the conversation doesn't stop there, as there are AI-specific model risks you also need to be thinking about. You might be familiar with deepfakes, images, video, voice, a synthetically altered photo, video, or story generated by AI neural networks. What's more is attackers can use this to deceive your AI models via tactics such as data poisoning. That's where attackers send bad data through your models. That can be in the form of imagery with altered pixels, or warping audio or tampering video files. In many instances, these changes are so subtle that they're imperceptible to humans. And to make matters worse, attackers can also hack into your models and figure out how they work, and then change them to make predictions or decisions aligned with their goals versus what the models were originally intended to do. Both data poisoning and model tampering are examples of an emerging field of research known as adversarial AI. We know that about 30% of attacks will use data poisoning tactics. And we know that it's possible to tamper with AI models to influence their predictions today. So what's the solution? Embed your security. Today, there are solutions that allow you to proactively detect poison data and to ensure models remain robust against adversarial attacks. Not only will these solutions ensure your AI security is on lockdown at the model level, but adversarial trained models actually demonstrate better performance in terms of fairness and reducing bias, and ultimately the algorithmic harm that we talked about earlier. To learn more about this topic of adversarial defense, I encourage you to tune into our live session on October 6th at 9 a.m. Eastern, led by Dr. Josh Sullivan and Dr. Arash Ramana, focused on 3 reasons why your AI will fail: model drift, adversarial defense, and the lack of explainability. Now, because I'm a man of my word and the 20-minute timer is about to alarm, I'm going to wrap this presentation by briefly restating a few main points. First, each of us has a responsibility to protect citizens from potential algorithmic harm, and pointing blame at the machine should never be an option. You no longer have the luxury of approaching AI opportunities from the perspective of can we build it, and instead must ask yourself, should we build it? 2, the ideal human and machine relationship is one defined by seeding the best tasks, decisions, and liabilities for each. And with the right governance processes and tools embedded, organizations can easily adapt to any evolving legal framework and regulation. And 3, AI security is paramount. And it's more than what you'd expect to see in any application system security plan. The adversarial threat is real. You need to implement capabilities that protect your data from poisoning, that increase the robustness of your algorithms from attack, and also bring AI out of the shadows. So when it comes to AI, we have great challenges and great opportunities. And with your help, we will meet them and make this year the best year in AI. Thank you very much for your time and enjoy the conference.